Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me today, as always, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on is today we pulled an audible. If you hadn't seen earlier in the week, we originally mentioned that we were going to be doing A Complete Unknown, but you can probably guess based on the name of this episode, we instead swapped it to Not Just a Goof, the A Goofy Movie documentary that came out this last week to Disney Plus in honor of A Goofy Movie's 30th anniversary. We're talking about the documentary today. But also, if you want, you can go all the way back to That D Plus Show episode 1, which was our episode on A Goofy Movie, a film so quintessentially part of my life that I desperately made it the first episode of this very podcast way back on January 7th, 2020. And there was a fun little trip down memory lane because I pulled up the Google Doc from that original episode. And hey, turns out we pretty much nailed the format for this show, or haven't changed it at least, from the beginning. Pretty much had the same kind of segments and bits and stuff. We've done a little bit more in recent years with like, hey, let's do like the box office guesses and stuff like that.
Or for Summer of Star Wars or Indiana Jones, stuff like that we've done.
Some little segments and rankings and stuff like that. But yeah, by and large, the doc from A Goofy Movie, pretty much similar to how the doc lays out for this particular episode. So why did we pick it? To celebrate the anniversary, the 30th anniversary of A Goofy Movie, and celebrate kind of our first episode as a big old full circle kind of moment. Also, I get to show off the Goofy Movie shirt that I got when I was on my Disney trip last week. And also I've got the Goofy Movie board game that I pulled onto the set behind me, which was also seen in the documentary. So yeah, we're going to talk all about Not Just a Goof, and of course, I'm sure Goofy Movie conversation will seep in there here and there. Originally released April 7th, 2025, as I said, to coincide with the 30th anniversary of the original film's release, has a runtime of 1 hour and 27 minutes, which ends up being about 10 minutes longer than the original film. Our roll call, we have the director of the documentary, of two directors here, Eric Kimmelton and Christopher Ninus. Eric Kimmelton, who is the one in the documentary who is also Kevin Lima's nephew, has worked on projects like In Development, Not Just a Goof, but then he is also a visual effects producer with Digital Domain on projects like Aquaman, Shazam, Morbius, She-Hulk, The Mandalorian, Madam Web, and most recently, Captain America: Brave New World. And then Christopher Ninus, who is the one who opens the film and does a lot of the voiceover and delivers that heartfelt letter to the cast and crew, has worked on projects like Amira, Beautiful World, Discover Indie Film, and Not Just a Goof. He's also worked on as an editor for various film and TV projects going back to 2010. Christopher Ninus and Eric Kimmelton are also our writers for the documentary here, writing the interstitials and whatnot. Christopher Ninus having written Amira, Justin Has a Date and Not Just a Goof, Eric Kimmelton writing In Development and Not Just a Goof, and then they're joined by a third writer, Mason Trueblood, who has worked on Justin Has a Date, Gus Plus Us, Not Just a Goof, and he's also credited as an actor / dancer on various projects, including Glee, Hairspray Live, DC Legends of Tomorrow, and Dear White People. And then, of course, our cast of characters for this documentary feature Kevin Lima, the Goofy Movie director. Goofy Movie was his directorial debut, as is kind of alluded to in the film. And he went on to direct Tarzan, 102 Dalmatians, and Enchanted. Gregory Perler is featured. He was the editor of A Goofy Movie and many other films, including Enchanted, Despicable Me 1 and 2, and Sing 1 and 2. Steve Moore was a storyboard artist on A Goofy Movie and other projects like Nightmare Before Christmas, Coraline, Despicable Me 1 and 2, and recently Young Jedi Adventures. Dan Rounds was a producer on A Goofy Movie and a few other films. Brian Pimentel is one of the 3 credited writers on A Goofy Movie, the main one who's featured in here, of course, alongside Jim Magin, who we get like a little Zoom video of, and Chris Matheson, who we don't, I believe, hear from or see in here. Brian Pimentel also had story credits on Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Brother Bear, and Home on the Range. And then, of course, we have some of our cast of characters, like Jason Marsden as Max, having been in Full House, Boy Meets World, Step by Step, and Noel Kreis in the Final Fantasy XIII series of games. Bill Farmer, of course, as Goofy, having been the voice of Goofy since the late 80s, including projects like Kingdom Hearts. Jim Cummings as Pete has also been the voice of Winnie the Pooh since the late 80s. He's been Pete since the 90s, and he was Darkwing Duck and hundreds of other credits over the course of his career. Kelly Martin we see briefly as Roxanne. She was in Daphne in Scooby-Doo for a bit, and then she was in ER after Goofy movie would come along. Rob Paulson as PJ, of course, a prolific voice actor. Raphael in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Yakko and Pinky on Animaniacs / Pinky and the Brain, and so on. Jenna Von Oy as Stacy, Six and Blossom. Frank Welker we see as Bigfoot, who had, back when I did this for a Goofy movie, had 848 actor credits on IMDb. I did not think to update that, but he's pretty much any animal in any cartoon you ever see. I always think of him as Nibbler in Futurama, but he was also Megatron in many of the Transformers projects.
If you hear an animal sound, it's either him or D. Bradley Baker, who is the voice of it.
Pretty much. I'm just pulling up his IMDb right now to see where he's at. He is up to 905 different credits.
There you go.
Unique actor credits on IMDb. And that's like, that's a show of 42 episodes is one credit a year. So he's just been very prolific on that front. And we also see or hear a few people through archival footage, the most notable one being Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was the chairman of Walt Disney Studios from 1984 to 1994 before he was, as the film touches on, ousted. He went on to co-found DreamWorks and continued producing animated films like Shrek, Madagascar, Kung Fu Panda, and How to Train Your Dragon, till he stepped down from DreamWorks in 2016. And then in more recent years, he was the primary figure behind the ill-fated Quibi platform, which was announced in late 2018, and then launched and shut down very quickly during the 2020 pandemic. And then, of course, we also see little bits of, we hear little bits of Wallace Shawn and Pauly Shore as Principal Mazer and Bobby, respectively. Wallace Shawn being Vicini from Princess Bride, Rex in Toy Story. At the time of a Goofy movie, he had just been a douchey actor, aka Frank, in Marriage Story. Pauly Shore, of course, Encino Man, Son-in-Law, Jury Duty, and Biodome. And I also occasionally see him pop up in podcast clips these days, so he seems to be doing a big old podcast thing.
He's also the current owner of the Comedy Store.
Yeah, in LA. Yep. Trivia for this: the audio clip heard at the beginning of the film is for Parachute Express's song "Dr. Looney's Remedy," which, as noted, was featured on the original VHS for a Goofy movie. I did a little bit of digging as to why. And even one of the guys from Parachute Express is like, we're pretty sure it was just luck of the draw. We had just done, we had done the video for this for the Disney Channel to be, shown in clips and interstitials there. And somebody in marketing was like, hey, let's throw this in as a preview before this A Goofy movie thing. So that's how it made its way onto to that iconic VHS. And then, of course, we have a section of fans gushing about the film, with a couple notable names, of course, being our friend Tim Geddes over from Kinda Funny. Fun fact that Cameron doesn't know, I'd been sitting on that knowledge since Monday. And so during that sequence, I had my phone sitting there recording in case I was going to get a fun Cameron reaction of oh, hey, it's Tim. But it was the most low-key subdued reaction. And I was like, well, that was just a waste of a couple minutes of my time.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Yeah.
I mean, I just wasn't surprised that he'd be in it. For some reason, they showed just about everybody.
Sure.
And so I was like, well, obviously Tim showed up in it.
Yeah. We have Gerard the Completionist is in there a little bit. Dante Basco, who does the talk to me, baby sequence, who, of course, this was pretty much his first voice acting role, was that little line from the film. But, of course, he would go on to play much more notable roles, such as Rufio from Hook and Zuko from Avatar The Last Airbender. Cleo Thomas is another one who is featured in there. He's the Powerline cosplayer who talks about seeing himself in a cartoon for the first time. He would go on to play Zero in Holes, and also regularly can be seen at the 90s Disney nights in that Powerline cosplay and you know, on social media and stuff like that. Which, in that note, legitimately had me surprised that Dimitri Beauchamp, aka Dime Each, was not in there with his Powerline cosplay or his like music DJ remixes.
Yeah, there's a couple of folks that I was surprised weren't in there.
Yeah, especially because like he's the one I always see out there doing the Powerline dance and whatnot on the socials and your TikToks and whatnot. So yeah, that's what I pulled together for the trivia on this one. In particular to this specifically, obviously we did some trivia on Goof Movie. I would say trivia is one of the things that got much more fleshed out over time, but I did have like a couple little bits of trivia here and there. In particular, calling out the fact that Kevin Lima is the voice of Lester, and he does that as like his little actor cameo in the film. But yeah, what did you think, Cam? I watched half of it with you, which was the second and a half time watching it. I watched it a couple days ago. I watched it last night before you did, and like took more copious notes. And then while you were watching it, I was like, yeah, I'll come and sit down and watch the rest of this. Try and get a Cameron reaction when he sees Tim on the screen, and then just a wet fart of it. So
sorry,
yeah, it's all good.
Honestly, it could have been good, but I was just like, it was also like, I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, of course, it makes sense. Mm-hmm. But for me, yeah, no, I adored it. I told you when I was sitting down to watch it that I was like excited, like giddy to watch it. Talking, like just going over this entire film from the perspective of the production of it. I'm not the biggest behind the scenes guy. Like I don't always like want to watch like how they made it. Because the problem is I've seen so many of them that they become so formulaic that it kind of becomes boring. And so I need something to like stand out.
Above the crowd,
yeah. I need something like that to do it. And they nailed it. The presentation of this documentary is like, I was gobsmacked. One, I love that it's his nephew that was like, hey, we're doing a Goofy movie documentary. You directed it. Can we come by? And he's like, not only can you come by, here is so much stuff.
Yeah, here is the treasure trove of what your documentary is going to be. Here's all the behind the scenes tapes that nobody's watched in 30 years. Just go ahead and like, transfer them to, digital, and they're yours, basically. Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. I was like, why didn't they world they did it? And then they show us that because of how fragmented out the studios were, that there was a constant recording of the production at headquarters so that people knew what sequences and how to animate it and everything like that.
Yeah. I love seeing like, I love the transition to that. Like we get some talking heads kind of the time first, talking about what the movie's going to be, but then we get that like that sequence where he's talking directly to camera and he's talking about here's what this sequence should be, here's what the Bigfoot in the car sequence should look like, and we don't know why he's telling this story directly to camera, and then it goes into like, but it's just a very heartfelt like the thing I appreciate about it is the way it's introduced. It's, this guy like really cared about the subtext of this movie and the like heart and the emotional core of this pivotal but also very silly scene in the movie. But why is he talking to camera? Like, why is this? And then it goes into the like, I'm recording these things because we're having to send them to our French offices, and basically we're overnighting them to France. They're taking those notes, they're giving us feedback, because this is all 30 years ago. It's a video conferencing room world kind of thing. Yeah,
it's very much pre global internet. It's pre everything, and so it's interesting to see how this is also kind of the blueprint for how a lot of production stuff is done today. With just like the copious amounts of freelancers and everything, and everybody working from home after the pandemic. As I am now, like the blank screens you see behind me, if you're watching the video version, are my workstation. So it is like, this is very much the new reality. And so seeing that, granted, like I work in financial compliance, I don't like, I'm not getting animation notes here. But when it comes to this sort of like idea and the way that it's all scattered out, it's very phenomenal to see how they were able to pull this film together. The way that that there had to have been so many notes going back and forth, so many like to the point where he's acting out what he wants to see animated. It's fascinating. I loved seeing that. I love seeing the stuff that like got cut early on in the production. They had the song Roxanne. They're like, well, this is going to be the show stuff. This is going to be the big song. It doesn't make the movie. And just, I loved also, and like another thing that I like, just everything about this movie was phenomenal. The documentary is fantastic. It's heartfelt. It's warm. It is a true love letter to not just a Goofy movie, but also the generation of millennials who grew up on the Goofy movie.
Yeah.
And who grew up on it, and just especially seeing like the backlash that it got when it came out initially. The only person who seemed to like have like anything positive to say about it was like Roger Ebert. And even that was lukewarm.
I would guess he gave it a thumbs down. I'm guessing they gave it 2 thumbs down would be my guess from that interview. Like, but also like if you go back and watch a lot of like Roger Ebert stuff of like notoriously cult classic kind of movies, it's like, no, he had a very specific taste, and that taste did not match the kids' tastes, you know, slash what would become the millennial taste at the time. It very much, there's like that whole sentiment, back when they were doing press for the Obi-Wan show, there was kind of like this sentiment that Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen had kind of at, you know, Star Wars Celebration stuff, where they talked about how, you know, the only voices they heard when the prequels came out were the, you know, negative critics and the people who had, you know, a vision and an idea of what Star Wars should be and did not like that this was a different version of Star Wars, so they, you know, lambasted it and whatnot. But over the years, they would go to conventions and they would meet the kids who were kids when they watched the prequels, and basically the movie, the audience that they made the movie for would come in and love and talk about how, you know, formative those movies were for them and how much they loved Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. Yeah. And so it's been like, it's nice that they got to see kind of that, you know, that resurgence and that like the audience found them and, you know, and held the torch for them all these years in the same way that Goofy movie did. Well, yeah, like there wasn't the internet where we could, you know, go and talk in forums or, you know, tweet out our thoughts on how great the Goofy movie was at the time. It was just, okay, some of us saw it in theaters before they, you know, rushed it out to VHS. Then a lot of us bought it on VHS and watched it on VHS all the time.
Yep.
And yeah, it hit at that like perfect moment. Again, for like, you know, I'm 10 years old when the movie comes out. And as I touched on, you know, back in our Goofy movie episode, it very much is, we joked about like, if we had been doing video episodes when we started that D Plus show and it wasn't just an audio only kind of experience, it's entirely possible we would have seen ourselves pop up in that little montage, talking about, you know, gushing about the movie and how it, in the same way, you know, like my family who would go on road trips when I was a kid, you know, we like, or, you know, would have loved that kind of, you know, Pete and PJ RV experience or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And my dad, who was a, you know, photographer who would take little pictures of kids and do like have a little squeaky Big Bird toy that he would, you know, squeak at them to make them laugh and chuckle and stuff. So I saw so much of myself in Max and in this movie. And I mean, like I don't remember if I talked about it on that episode or if I talked about it later when I did our friends over at the Disney Vault podcast when they did their episode on a Goofy movie. But it is a significant realization that I've had in my life that I have my dad's laugh in the same way that Max is devastated and terrified of having his dad's laugh before ultimately embracing it and realizing that it's just part of that charm. But yeah, when I laugh, I hear my dad's laugh coming out of my own mouth. And so, like, yeah, there is so much about this movie that I loved. Yeah, it was heartbreaking seeing that moment of like all the critics tearing it apart and how devastated and you know torn down they were.
I didn't know it was a flop. I thought it was here's the thing, I talked to my sister Kate, I was like, well, we had to have gone seen that, right, in theaters. And my sister was like, I don't think so. And then she pointed out that my great aunt at the time probably took me and maybe my little sister to go see it. Because the older kids wouldn't have been too interested in it. But I remember seeing it in theaters and just being blown away by it. And just the same thing, like my family every summer, my dad was a teacher. And so during the summers, it was pack us up in a van and move and like take us to another state to stay with family for a couple months to make things just a little bit more like give us time with cousins and stuff, but also make things cheaper.
It also, as they touch on in the movie, this was very deliberately a lower budget version of an animated feature coming at the tail end of the Disney Renaissance of Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King. Like this being the first Disney release after The Lion King, which was the biggest animated film of all time to that point, was absolutely going to be like a disappointment and a letdown, even if it had done like crazy, crazy numbers, just because it wasn't, as they touch on in the film, like the fairy tale, the classic kind of, here we're going to take from some sort of source material and do the Disney animated spin on it.
The hero, the villains, the challenge, the drama, like this was an interpersonal film. And they touch on like how important it was to hear Kevin talk about how I believe if Kevin is the director.
Yeah, Kevin
Lehman. When Kevin was talking about his own experience, like his dad left when he was 11 and didn't come back. And so this empty feeling, he felt like he filled that in with the Goofy movie. Like this idea of what would have been like to have a dad. And it really is, you talk about like you don't know what you have until you don't miss what you have until you don't have it anymore. Like it's hard, or the value of something until you miss it, etc. Whatever the actual turn of phrase is, my apologies. But there is a level of...
You don't know what you've got till it's gone.
Thank you.
They pay Paradise and put up a parking lot.
There you go.
Shout out to Counting Crows.
Yeah. Weird that you had a Counting Crows reference, because I've been thinking of like Accidentally in Love and Mr. Jones in the last couple of days, which is weird. 90s is having a resurgence. What can I say? Hey, are they 90s or early? Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that I was really blown away by the kind of idea that he had. Like, I wish I had had this experience when I was growing up. And it's true. It's like, PJ suffers from his dad being like the world's biggest dick. Like just what an absolute jerk he is. Pete is awful. And it's interesting looking back at that film and being like, yeah, I'm sure PJ wishes his dad was like, didn't make him clean the camper and like did all that. He would have had a bit more like family bonding stuff. But yeah, no, it is such a fascinating way of looking at how this film got made. It's the impact that this film has had. And also shout out to them absolutely shutting down the D23 panel. They got shoved into the smallest room that only fit like 500 people, and they had to turn away over 1,000.
Yeah, I remember that being a story coming out of D23 at the time.
I remember,
10 years ago, and just being like, hell yeah, good for them.
Yep.
Let's that's great. I love that they had that little like, it's what we hear. I mean, like the X-Men 97 actors had the same kind of experience of like, they made that show in a bubble in the 90s originally, and the only way they knew what a big deal it was the people who made the show saw the fan mail coming in, but the actors didn't necessarily know what it was like until kind of the convention circuit really starts coming up and they start going out there and people sign up for autograph sessions and wait in line to meet these people because of what a staple they were of their childhood and stuff like that. So I love that that these guys kind of got that same sense of like, oh, there was an audience out there for it. We just didn't know how to hear from them at the time. And I love especially the kind of conversation around how Black culture kind of like really
I was going to actually bring that up.
To this film, which obviously I think is in large part, the fact that Powerline is very much a Prince style figure.
Prince, his outfit and a lot of his dance style is based off of Bobby Brown at the time. Like he's very much an amalgamation of R&B, pop, like rock star, like level of celebrity. But yeah, no, it was fascinating to see. Like I knew that from the internet and like seeing, friend of the show, Emmett Watkins Jr. and a lot of other folks out there who made it very clear to me that I did not know at the time. Like Goofy's black, Goofy's black, Max is black, Powerline is black. But Powerline was obviously that emphasis of it because of R&B culture in the 90s. But yeah, no, it makes sense, especially when you look at like they're basing it on kind of LA suburban culture is what the contemporary kind of apparatus is that this movie takes place in. And if you're looking at it in 1995, who are the biggest artists at the time? They are R&B artists. They are either R&B groups like Boyz II Men, or you're looking at single stars like Bobby Brown, or, I mean, Prince has always been Prince, and will always be Prince. So, you know, it is like fascinating to see, because you have the transition from early 90s Oakland, like not Oakland or Compton sourced rap that really brought black culture to the forefront of music, but R&B really helped supplant it and like make it a permanent stay in a lot of ways. I'm not a music historian, but this is kind of like my take on it from the lens of looking at this movie and seeing the kind of impact that it has. In that, yeah, no, I loved that. You know, I didn't see myself in Powerline or in Max or Goofy necessarily, but there is power in that. There is emphasis and importance, and there's a reason why this movie stood the test of time. Besides just, you know, being quick to the VHS like golden age of direct home videos, it kind of like it was one of those early ones that was a coveted treasure in most homes. My family had 2 copies of it because we wore the first one out.
Yeah. I love one of the other things I love about the presentation of this is the little animated interstitials that we get.
Yes.
Especially like a Goofy movie style of the animation. So we see what a Goofy movie version of Jeffrey Katzenberg would look like, or
I love how short he was.
Yeah, exactly. We get the eventually we get the beautiful like narration that the director and writer Christopher does of kind of his childhood experience and watching the movie with his dad, and how impactful and meaningful that watching movies with his dad was, and then his parents get separated, but this movie kind of comes into the picture and helps him understand his dad better and understand, and he sees, you know, a story about a dad who does nothing but love his son. Is a very beautiful kind of like
and helping him realize, oh, my dad has stuff he's going through.
Yeah,
it really does. It, you know, at some point in our lives we grow up and we realize that, oh, we're not like other people have stuff they go through too, including our parents. We're in our 30s. Our parents had children by the time they were our age. It's like it's a real thing. Like they like, gosh, I think I was turning 29, and like I knew that was like the age that like 29 or 30. I knew that was the age my mom had me, and it's like my parents at 29 being like, oh my gosh, how are we going to be able to afford you know a 4th kid? And it's like, oh, my problem at 29, 30. It's like, oh man, how am I going to be able to afford afford dinner on my college budget? Very much like different level of, difficulties with it, but learning that your parents are people, that they have struggles and dreams and things that they, I was talking to my dad about I've been talking to my dad a lot because technically I was living with him for 7 months. But something a couple years ago that we had a discussion with is he goes, he apologized to me because he said, I found my work so fulfilling that I gave you the impression that work was supposed to be the thing that fulfills you in life. And learning that distinction between my dad and I, and be like, oh, work doesn't have to be the thing. I was living with you at the time. You know this.
Yeah.
We've had plenty of conversations about it.
The fact that I love my job is a very different dynamic than you've encountered the last few jobs you've had. Yeah.
Not only that, but also just the what you're getting out of it, and what people get out of their work versus what they get out of their life. You love your job because it awards you work for a good company and everything like that, but also it gives you the monetary support that you need to do the things that you love, like go to Disney or buy Legos. Buying a lot of Legos.
Yeah, yeah.
But
and going to Disney a lot.
You go to Disney a lot. But I think that that's something that is like there are so many layers to adulthood, and looking at Goofy's journey in like my son's a delinquent. Like he got in trouble with the principal. He hijacked the last day of assemblies, like the last school day of assembly. Like that's crazy. Like that's so horrible, and that's what kind of like eggs Goofy on of like I need to reconnect with my son. And like it has such great strength in that and that level of depth to it. And the way that, I keep on forgetting how to pronounce his name. Kreisberg? Kreizenberg?
Katzenberg.
Katzenberg, thank you. The way Katzenberg looks at, like, oh, hey, the first pitch he got was, oh, yeah, it's
not going to just all be bits, right? You got to find the heart.
Yeah, he goes, where's the heart? And the guy's like, this guy, like, one of my favorite things was like, he came in, he didn't know two things about animation, didn't care about it. And by the time he left, he not only was like one of the most successful like studio heads they've ever had, but also then co-founded DreamWorks and created the second most powerful animated studio in the industry. To your caveat last night when we talked about it, you mentioned, of course, Pixar got bought by Disney.
Yeah. And also, I don't know where Illumination now falls in the mix with all the Despicable Me's and the Super Mario Brothers and stuff like that. But DreamWorks definitely still has their clear-cut franchises that are doing just fine.
Yeah. They're doing great. But yeah, like, having that level of, but then when he's finished with Lion King, he goes to them and says, okay, you now have my focus. And that's when they were like, oh, he was fitting us in. Are his dailies with us were being fitted in at like early morning or late at night. And then realizing, oh, it's because he was doing everything he could to fit them in his schedule. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it shows that he, even for this, like, hey, this is going to be an experiment to see if we can make, less expensive animated features. And let's see what we can do with it using existing property, existing IP, and like retransforming that. Let's take Goofy and make a Goofy movie. Give me the heart. And they're like, the heart should be a father-son story.
Mm-hmm. But also, he shouldn't have the Goofy voice. He should be Steve Martin. And then I love the like everybody being like, that's a stupid idea. All right, Bill, go ahead, and we want you to do this as just your voice. And then Bill Farmer has this like psychological break about like, they don't want to hear Goofy in a Goofy movie. I love the line. This is how the whim of a studio executive can change a movie in a moment if you don't fight back against a bad idea.
That's a great line.
Yeah, but I love that it, even as a dumb of an idea as it was, and like, I mean, we say that in hindsight. I think he's very much going from the, well, we got Robin Williams to play the genie, so let's get Steve Martin to come in and play Goofy. It'll kill. It'll be gangbusters.
The lines are there.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting that he gets bounced, then Aladdin 2's comes around, and he's not there to make the Robin Williams deal anymore.
Well, Robin Williams, as I understand it, basically signed on to Aladdin on the condition that they don't market it as like this is a Robin Williams movie. He's he shouldn't be the focal point. Disney kind of went back on that, and so he was like, "No, I'm not going to do it."
Then maybe he was the person responsible for that decision.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe he's the reason why Robin Williams didn't come back.
Yeah.
No.
But then he eventually comes back for Aladdin 3.
Yeah, King of Thieves.
Yep.
With Aladdin's hot dad.
Sure. But yes. But I do appreciate that even though like the idea of bringing in Steve Martin to be Goofy and just not do the Goofy voice is silly, I appreciate that they kind of used it as an opportunity to stretch Bill Farmer out and be like, okay, remember when you did it in your normal voice? We can find more subtlety in the performance. We can play more with the range of Goofy. It doesn't always have to be over the top and yucking at everything. And I think that obviously makes for a much more vibrant highs and lows of the Goofy that we see in the movie.
I agree. I think that it does a phenomenal job of that. It's so good. Like, it's so phenomenally good to look at how they were able to make this work with the budget they had and the effort that they all put into it. And then, of course, as soon as they're like ready, it's done, they notice a pixel's missing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A little black spot.
Yeah, that little era, that weird era before we've gone fully digital where they're compositing things and putting them on a screen and then just shooting film off of that screen.
Yep.
And eventually finding, hey, yeah, there's a little black spot missing from our whole thing. Oh, it's because there was a pixel burnt out on the TV monitor that they were shooting the film on, and having to
redo the entire movie.
reshoot the entire film. Wild there, but also that giving them the breathing room that they needed to finish the film. Of course, the caveat there is also with Katzenberg kind of getting pushed out of Disney at that time, they lose their guardian angel, and they very much feel how much they lost their guardian angel when just support for the movie dries up. And it's
they
a
mentioned,
story.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's a story I've seen with the amount of Disney things I've watched. Namely, I feel like there's an anecdote back in the Imagineering story that is in the same kind of vein where over the years you have your like heads come in and go from Disney. I mean, Michael Eisner had this too himself of like, you know, pet projects, and this is the thing I'm going to really get behind, and then the new person comes over and, well, that's a thing that I don't care about anymore. I mean, like I most recently, of course, you know,
The Bobs.
Bob Iger basically being like, all right, Disney Plus is the big thing I'm trying to get out the door. We made the Marvel deal. We made the Star Wars deal. Disney Plus is here. Disney Plus is done. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go away. And Bob Chapek comes in and is like, I don't know what the fuck to do with this Disney Plus thing. All right, let's just throw a whole bunch of stuff on here. Oh, and there's a pandemic. Ah, crap. So yeah.
Let's make some bad decisions that breach contracts with movie stars.
Yeah.
That cause a whole lot of problems.
And let's put a whole bunch of stuff on Disney Plus. And then, yeah, Bob Iger comes back. It's like, I didn't want this. I didn't want this. I didn't want this. So a whole bunch of those things get scrapped or pulled or whatever we're seeing.
Moana is a show? No.
This is absolutely a movie that if the era of corporate, like, corruption and crap that we see now with David Zaslav basically being like,
oh, yeah,
I'm going to cancel the Batgirl movie. A Goof movie would have never seen the light of day if that had happened, if that was the kind of mentality that they took back in the day.
You need Coyote, like you need what they, like there's an angel investor who came in and bought the rights for Acme v Coyote or whatever the Will Forte Roadrunner movie is.
Yep.
That people are like, it's really freaking good. But granted, like we also know that Batgirl was done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just gone forever.
Yep.
And it sucks because like you had really good people in that movie. And I don't know if that movie would have been like phenomenal, but it looked good.
I mean, it can't have been worse than the things that they did end up releasing, like The Flash or Black Adam.
The Flash, which was unfinished, with its like wonky 3D CG that they threw in there. And it's like, at first I was like, well, I kind of get it. It's because he's moving fast. It's like, but then you put it out, it's like, no, it's just unfinished CGI. It's bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad. And I look at that, I'm like, yeah, no, it makes sense. And it's, yeah, that didn't get canceled. Instead, you canceled Batgirl, which had, what's his name?
Brendan Fraser?
Brendan Fraser as Firefly.
Yep.
He's like Brendan Fraser's talking about Firefly. I'm like, I want to see this villain.
It was directed by the people who did the Miss Marvel series. Yeah. It's like, very much like Katzenberg was clearly the guardian angel of the project. He gets pulled, and so they're basically like, all right, well, at this point, we already put enough into it. Let's just kind of let it, go out to die, kind of thing.
LA premiere goes to Orlando.
Yeah, goes to Disney World.
Yeah,
which I mean, like we still see that, in the modern era. Most recently, we saw it with the Haunted Mansion premiere that they basically sent to Disneyland because it was during the actor strike and they couldn't have any actors actually there on the red carpet. So instead they had Disney characters at Disneyland on the red carpet for a Haunted Mansion. So
also
they'll still do the exact same crap, but
also some influencers who are kind of still blacklisted in the creative community.
Yeah.
So
I
don't break the picket line, folks.
It's sad seeing that kind of stuff.
But still, it shows like this is really the whole thing. Is like the VHS was like the crown jewel of cult classics. This is how cult classics are made and they survive.
Yeah.
You have a Goofy movie. You have just so many others that just would have never seen the success and resurgence and love that they do online now, where like, you know, who know like
The-
can you tell me how like, or you can't tell me how often a Goofy movie gets streamed on Disney Plus?
That I can't tell. I mean, it was in the both a Goofy movie and Not Just a Goof have been in their like top 10 counts. I won't have it, but they do have like streaming charts. That's one of the things I occasionally catch on Charts with Dan over on YouTube. Because like there will be the Nielsen ratings will measure the problem is Nielsen only does like US, stuff, but they'll and it's also like a month behind. So in a few weeks we'll know, hey, did Nielsen crack the top 10 or did Goofy movie crack the top 10 of Nielsen, or could they just not cut it against The White Lotus and the whatever nonsense is streaming on Netflix on any given day? Like Coco Melon's just always on the not Netflix top 10 kind of thing.
That's because Coco Melon is an it's an abomination. Whoever created Coco Melon, first off, they must be filthy rich.
Yeah.
But also, they made a deal with the devil because that is Coco Melon straight from hell.
Yeah. It is still
As an uncle who has watched a lot of Coco Melon, it's straight from hell.
Well, I think we see it much more rare today in terms of this like cult classic groundswell thing that happens in the era of streaming. I do think there are films, and the example I'm going to give is Into the Spider-Verse did not set the world on fire in the box office, but when that movie hit Netflix during the pandemic, everybody fell in love with Spider-Verse, and so Across the Spider-Verse did way better numbers-wise than Into the Spider-Verse. So I think there are still opportunities for that kind of like cult sensation. I mean, like Squid Game would be really probably the biggest
for sure
example of this.
A foreign show about where people are playing children's games that no American has ever played.
I mean, we played Red Light, Green Light.
Oh, that's fair. But I'm referring to like all the other ones that are like kid games that they put in there.
Yeah.
Straight up, yeah. No, it's yeah.
So yeah, like there are still occasional cases like this, but I think it is. There was a Matt Damon talked about this back when he did Hot Ones. He talks about the idea that like the reason we don't see these like this tier of movie making anymore is because this distribution stream dried up. Like in the past, okay, if you don't make your money back in the theatrical window, well, you'll still get a pretty decent chunk of change in movie rentals and the home market and stuff like that. And that just doesn't happen anymore. Now it's okay, you get a lump sum when it goes to streaming, and that's about it usually. So now you pretty much have to try and make your movie back in the theatrical window, and that's a big risk, and people don't want to do that. Movies like what was it, the recent Russo one that is on Netflix.
The Electric State.
The Electric State. That if that like cost the $320 million that it reportedly cost, that's never going to make its money back on Netflix, because how do you calculate that in terms of like watch time versus Netflix subscription revenue or something like that? It's never going to make $320 million worth. It never would have made that in the box office or anything like that. The fact that they have the little bit in here like this movie made $37.5 million on an $18 million, it was $28 million.
That
still,
was great.
Like I think the 18, like my guess there would be 18 million is production costs and the 28 million is adding the $10 million that was like marketing costs to it, most likely. So that's probably the full picture you're getting. But still, that movie did what it needed to do. It made enough money in the theatrical window. And then, probably made a ton more on those VHS sales and eventual DVD sales and stuff like that. So, I love that the movie did ultimately find its success. And I love the bit at the end talking about, people saying it's an underrated, it should be a Disney classic, and the audience has made it a Disney classic.
Yeah.
It is a Disney classic. It's not going to necessarily be, thought of in the same breath as that Renaissance era and the films of its time, but it absolutely hits for a generation and clearly had like it is one of those that has a ton of, and even I've seen even more pop up this week in honor of the 30th anniversary of like video essays about how good and how slept on a Goofy movie was and all that stuff. And it's still, and maybe this is just because my feed is going to be catered to me, but like I've seen a good handful of stories spin out into like the varieties and the deadlines and stuff like that, spinning out from this documentary, talking about like Goofy movie being in the DNA, or like the black culture being in the DNA of a Goofy movie and stuff like that, and kind of quoting what is talked about in the film. So yeah, shout outs to all these 30 years later, the movie just continuing to make waves and find an audience. Any other moments you want to give some love to or give a shout out to or anything like that?
No, I think I'm good.
So the standout sequence again.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, we didn't talk about that. The standout sequence, the video capture of the dancers.
Yeah, eye to eye.
Eye to eye.
The side by side of the live action dancers with the animation of eye to eye was just amazing.
Incredible.
Like, that it makes this whole thing worthwhile alone.
Oh, not only that, but also the vocal recordings of Powerline stuff.
And that was again going back to the like Powerline being obviously very black culture heavy. The fact that and it's one of those things like I probably knew, or I'd probably heard snippets and stuff, but like Tevin Campbell being somebody that Prince was working with, they call out the woman who does the belting in Eye to Eye also being one of Prince's like background singers, the Waters family that is in there, like there it just being kind of the culture around that. But yeah, the 1-2 punch of Tevin Campbell coming in and just crushing the songs in like one or two takes. And everybody being like, oh my God, this is so good. And then, the choreography done in live action. And it's like I watched Frank and Ollie a while back. It's a documentary about a couple of the 9 old men, Frank and Ollie. I forget their last names, but like people who worked on The Jungle Book and other movies that also get shout outs here. And that idea of rotoscoping and hey, we're going to film something in live action and then we're going to animate kind of over the movement that they have. Little Mermaid had that a lot too. There's a performance capture kind of thing for Ariel that then they animate to somebody doing the live action gestures and the big over the top singing numbers and stuff like that. And so seeing that and how like what a 1-to-1 translation that was so much fun.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that. And especially, when they talk about like, okay, we've got the choreographer doing the Powerline bit and he's doing it crisp and clean and like, flawless kind of thing. And we've got this guy who's doing it as Goofy and he's throwing in a lot more like flailing and silliness. And we've got the short guy who's Max, who's kind of the blend of the two. And he's the big Powerline fan, but he is also a goof. And seeing all of them come together and embody the versions of those characters that we then see kind of in the finished animated project was just a ton of fun. So shout out Anthony Thomas, the choreographer there, who was also the Powerline stand-in basically.
Fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. Getting to see that footage is incredible.
Yeah, it's my note here. Fucking cool ass side by side. Eye to Eye being the hardest sequence. Yeah, they touch on that.
Also, shout out to like all the songs that got cut. Roxanne, there was one about that was like a
Made in the Shade being the Goofy POV one, and then like Bad Kid or whatever it was.
Bad Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like that would have been like a Pete song or a Pete and the Principal song or something like that. But
I would imagine it was one where like Goofy is like being subjected to Pete's like reporting, I suppose.
A few other things I want to give some love to. We talked about it a little bit, but one of the small details I absolutely love in that first to the camera scene that we find out is like, hey, it's for the French animators and stuff like that, is Kevin Lima always calls Max Maxie.
Yep.
And it is that like that loving the character as a father, and referring to him the same way that Goofy does. Love that, and I love that he kind of ends that whole sequence with like, "Don't be afraid to be subtle." Was I think a beautiful sentiment in that sequence. Do, 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 do. Um, I loved the little clip we get to see of Jason and Kelly, who plays Roxanne, and them doing the like, all right, we're all adults here. Let's try and do a little sequence where you're both in front of the same mic, and let's do like a kiss for real and see how that changes the enemy.
So good.
And yeah, we get that like close moment, and then they kind of like break because the nervous laughter of like, wait, who's supposed to do the kiss? Oh no, and I love that.
Yeah.
So much fun, and I love that it's something that especially at that time was a rarity, and I think really you only see it on probably like a handful of projects even these days of like the entire or like getting the cast together to record their sessions.
Yeah, that's such
having
a rarity.
Goofy and Max record their lines together, since you really need the heart of that back and forth. I know I believe like The Simpsons are one of the few that do it, of like, hey, yeah, The Simpsons get the whole cast around and they all record together these days. But yeah, it's such a rarity in voiceover and animation and stuff like that. So I love that Kevin kind of came in and really pushed for that as a director, even pushing to come in and be the director himself and not just rely on like a voice director while he does the animation and stuff like that.
Oh, also shout out to them keeping in the footage of Kevin being, Kevin doesn't talk over this as like an adult, like in the future. This is at the time where they mentioned, hey, so the people who made Goof Troop, are they involved in this at all? No, and it's a big deal that they're not, like, it has been a big problem that they're not involved.
Yeah.
They've made it a big problem, and it's like, it's a very, like...
the tension between the feature people and the television people. Yeah, absolutely.
In animation. Also, like, the little resources they got from compared to proper Disney animation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but also, yeah, everything Kevin did to try to, like, really take the reins on this film and really guide it the way I think it needed to be guided. Definitely broke the mold on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Having the film director in there for the voice direction is very much unheard of. Even to this day, it's not normal.
Yeah. We already touched on that. Where was it? Where'd my note for it go? I love the little maquettes that we get to see. The little.
Yeah,
little,
they're so cute. Max and Roxanne.
Poor Roxanne's like, her ankles basically just been shredded at this point. But those being a fun little trinket, especially just looking at like the rest of the like little montage of things we see around his house, because he had directed Tarzan and Enchanted. We see like little homages to those, but also he's just a lifelong Disney / Star Wars / Muppets, like seeing his love and him describing himself as basically like a lifelong creative, who's trying to bring joy and stuff to those stories. Love that. And I love that there was a focus on how do we make Goofy an emotional character? How do we stretch him from making him one note? And then that gets backlash. People don't want to see that from Goofy in 1995. The people who grew up with Goofy as the silly Goofy character don't want to see him feel emotional things, but it absolutely, resonated with the audience that hadn't spent 60 years living with the character in his one note status. We actually liked depth and breadth and whatnot. What else do I have in here? Anything else? We already touched about on a lot of the Jeffrey Katzenberg stuff there. And the just sad, like, critical disaster response. I do love the like, it cuts to everybody being like, we think we really got a thing going on here. This like Jason Marsden doing the like standout riff. Then it cuts to the trailer, which this was the first time I realized just how much the trailer just absolutely lies. Like, Max is the most popular kid in school. No, he's not.
He's not. Nope.
His girlfriend is the hottest. Not his girlfriend.
Nope.
And that is like, and one more thing. And then it's like, but the one thing they get right is that his dad is Goofy. But yeah, it's just like, oh, that's a total like bait and switch kind of.
Also, those
less 90s.
Gosh, yeah, so goddamn
trailer.
90s.
Yeah.
Like, voiceover of a guy telling you what the movie is about.
Yeah. But then, yeah, that cut with, all right, opening weekend, and here's how great Bad Boys did. And Goofy Movie did half as much in second place, and then Tommy Boy was in third. And then, yeah, just the punching bag of the reviews and stuff like that. But then the triumphant 20 years later kind of moment of D23. Absolutely love that. Love getting the montage of the fans kind of singing its praises for the movie. I love I do like the director's little letter to the cast and crew and kind of the very personal story talking about how it changed his life. And I love that leads into Kevin basically being like, the best story I get and the most common one I get is when the movie does what it set out to do, of like giving parents and children a connective point and a way to talk and understand one another. And then you cut back to past Kevin in like the archival footage of, I would love to have them laugh and cry at Goofy. And then a little montage of beautiful Disney moments. We get the audience made a Disney classic. And yeah, that's it. I will throw in here, because I know you did not watch for the post credits tag. But they after the credits, they do have a little moment of like, so would you ever do like a sequel to a Goofy Movie? And Kevin's like, no, God, no. Which immediately reads as like a dunk on an extremely Goofy movie.
Yeah.
But he does also go with that he has thought about a Powerline documentary. And I'm like, that has been my pitch for years.
Yeah.
Do a Powerline documentary about how his life changed when this random guy showed up and crashed onto his set and ruined the concert or whatnot, and basically do it like how my pitch has always been. I think it's in that very first episode of that D Plus show, but the idea of a behind the music style Powerline episode of like, I was riding high, I was, doing pay-per-views across the world, and then it all fell apart.
I don't know if I would want to frame it as it all fell apart, as in like, well, all right, so I'm going to tell you, everybody always asks, who's that guy that showed up? Like we've always said that he was a big inspirational thing to me growing up, that having him on there was a big thing. I'm here to tell you, I have no idea who that man is. And like make it a bit more like Powerline. It's like the mystery behind that concert, because this guy shows up and this kid show up and then they're never seen again. And it's like, who are these people? What happened? Powerline being like, yeah, no, rumors showed up about like he was a big inspiration to you. And Powerline, and it'd be funny if Powerline is like, for years I've said that was true. The truth is I have no idea who it is. Also, my security guard almost murdered a child.
I'm much more of a fan of my security guard almost murdered a child, but then electrocuted himself when he flew into the screen.
That's true. Yeah, he died.
And hey, we didn't have insurance for that, so that's how the tour got hosed. And I was at the top of the world one day, and because of this weird random guy,
wrongful death lawsuit.
Yeah. Because of this guy I'd never seen before who just showed up, and I didn't know what else was happening in the moment. So yeah, I went along with it. We did this weird little dance. Fine, whatever. But yeah, that's I would love that.
Or have it be like people wondering like what happened at this concert, and it's Powerline is just like, I don't want to talk about it. It's because Prince did become quite a recluse later, in the last 20 years of his life. But you could easily pull Prince on that and just be like, Prince, we just have to ask. And have him be like, I said I would never, until the day I died, let people know the truth of that concert.
This is a movie, not Powerline documentary, but this is, I think, one of the few cases where they could actually probably get away with the long belated sequel, like another Goofy movie. And it is Max, who's now grown up, Grandpa Goofy. Max is a kid of his own and goes through a lot of the same things that he did with his dad. And maybe it is a Powerline reunion tour and they decide to go across country to go see it or something like that.
That would actually be pretty sick. I would love that. And have it be like being reunited with Powerline. Or no, here's the thing. Goofy gets the invite from Powerline because Goofy's been keeping up with Powerline for years.
You really like this you really like the connection between Goofy and Powerline.
I'm trying to tell you right now that there's no way after that concert that either one, Goofy and Max just disappear into the night and Powerline has no idea who they are,
Absolutely, that's what happens.
or makes a real connection with Goofy. Goofy becomes the photographer for his for that tour, the rest of that tour.
nah.
You know, Goofy and Max spend the summer with Powerline. It's a fun time. And then Goofy, does whatever Goofy does next, which I believe he goes back to college, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, in an extremely goofy movie, it is,
and falls in love with the literature professor, I believe.
Yeah, it is the librarian.
Librarian,
Goofy, Max goes. It is the most 2000s movie. If this is the most 90s version, the extremely goofy movie, which I've only seen one time, and it was when I watched it for our friends over at the Castle Movie Vault.
I watched it a couple of times.
Max joins the X Games, basically.
Yeah,
college X Games. And Goofy goes back to college to be there and bond with Max. And
it's essentially the plot of Back to School with what's his name? No respect at all. Rodney Dangerfield.
Yep.
It's basically the plot for Back to School, except instead of like your rich father coming in and dominating, becoming the coolest dude in school, it's Goofy.
Yeah. Mixed with like Revenge of the Nerds of like, all right,
Yeah.
we're the X team, but they're like the preppy rich, X Games team. And they're messing with us the whole time.
And we get to see PJ blossom into a beatnik.
Yep.
Which is great. Good for him.
Indeed.
It is also like the proverbial like quiet, shy nerd in high school ends up blossoming in college. So.
Yeah. So shout out here to Not Just a Goof, a very lovely documentary looking back at a very lovely A Goofy Movie classic. Let's dive into the report card. We're grade from A+ to F. What do you want to give Not Just a Goof, Cameron?
It's an A+, easy.
Yeah, easy A+ for me.
I'm sorry, it's something adjacent to a Goofy movie gets an A+?
Exactly.
Oh, I wonder what happened.
Crazy. Extra credit, other suggestions. If you like this, you have, of course, a Goofy movie, an extremely Goofy movie. The thing that I think is funny, especially given what is highlighted in here, Goof Troop not in the 8 things that are recommended.
Is a Goof Troop on Disney Plus?
Yeah, it's on there.
Oh,
it's one of the things that was recommended if you watch a Goofy movie.
Oh, there you go.
Just not just a goof. But yeah, a Goofy movie, an extremely Goofy movie. Mickey, The Story of a Mouse, Jim Henson Idea Man, Howard, Frank and Ollie, Waking Sleeping Beauty, and Light and Magic. And then a few extras that I threw in here for fun. The A Goofy Movie After Today, shot-for-shot live-action remake, which is alluded to and shown in the film. A Goofy Movie in Real Life with Peter Hollins on YouTube. This is the one that is basically like the recreation of a Standout and Eye to Eye medley and stuff like that. You can find the 20th anniversary D23 panel that is referenced in the film in its 1 hour entirety. You can go catch that out. And then in honor of the 30th anniversary and kind of like in conjunction with this, there's a YouTube video out there on the Disney channel called on the Disney YouTube channel called On the Road Again, A Goofy Movie 30th Anniversary with Bill Farmer and Jason Marsden. That is basically the two of them in a car, clearly on like green screen, but basically like driving through town, driving on the freeway, floating down a river, and it's the two of them reminiscing on like the legacy of the film here now for the 30th anniversary. So
that's cool.
Fun little companion piece, like 7-8 minutes kind of thing. Nothing too crazy, but it's out there and fun if you're so inclined. Extracurriculars. You watching anything else on Disney Plus there, Cameron?
Yeah, Daredevil. Born Again.
Daredevil Born Again? Yeah.
It's really freaking good. So
I am still a few episodes behind. I'm not caught up.
I've not fully caught up either. I'm in the middle of like catching up with them. So
the last one I saw was the standalone bank episode. So yeah, I'm still a couple weeks behind, but yes, we will be back with that one for next week's episode.
Yeah.
But I did, just because it was I was in the mood, I did, of course, rewatch a Goofy movie.
Sure.
Threw that on in the background while at work and just kind of enjoyed that yesterday as well. So yeah, that's me. And that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk all about Not Just a Goof. You can follow Cameron at revcabot.bsky.social. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I want to give a massive shout out to most recent episode of That Nerdy Site Show. We did a deep dive into your 40 years of gaming. We had a phenomenal discussion over it. I asked you a series of questions and really let you, ham up your piece, and as you deserve to. You put in a lot of work and effort into it, and if you've read any of his 40 years of gaming, I would recommend listening to this podcast because it's a great companion piece to it.
Yeah. You follow me at trevorjstarkey.bsky.social. I will echo the shout out there to the 40 years of gaming, that nerdy site show. As I said, next week we'll be doing Daredevil Born Again, kind of the full season because it wraps up next week. I'm throwing it out here now, and this is kind of the first public announcement we're making of it. But this is a very full circle moment of kind of, we started with a Goof movie, and now we've got not just a Goof here, because we are planning on winding down the podcasts in the weeks and months ahead. Just kind of, we're up past I think this is like 261 in terms of episodes. So, we've had a good 5-year run, and I'm just kind of looking for, a break / new adventures / not having to make content, every week in and week out kind of thing. So no firm plans on when everything's going to be kind of sunset just yet. We will still be doing, episodes for the foreseeable future, and we're
in the middle of recording a Let's Play series. So.
But both that D Plus show and that Nerdy Site show will be kind of winding down on the podcast's front here in the near future. That Nerdy Site show will still be that Nerdy Site will still be up for the foreseeable future. But yeah, the podcasts themselves will be coming to a close here in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you to everybody who's joined us for any of these episodes and who's tuned in. It's been a delight and a fun little, joy of sharing the highs and lows of Disney Plus over the years. Fun little full circle kind of Goofy movie to not just a Goof moment here. But again, we will be back next week with the full season of Daredevil Born Again. We have I'm sure we're going to find time to do the Andor season 2 is coming up, so I'm sure we're gonna do plenty of Andor stuff. There's
Absolutely.
Gonna be the May 4th Tales from the Underground Star Wars little series of shorts.
If you think that D Plus show is getting away from a summer of Star Wars, I hate to bring it to you. It's not ending that soon.
But hey, and at the same time, we don't necessarily need to go back and watch Captain America: Brave New World if we don't want to.
Yep, there we go.
So yeah, stay tuned for what we still have in store. But just know that we are coming to a close sometime in the future.
We're not locking the doors just yet.
Yeah. You follow all the latest from us over at That Nerdy Site while it still is up there and going. And I do still have, I did not fully update the docket here, so I still have all hey, support us on Patreon stuff in here.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a long time ago.
Because that's from a ways ago.
That's an era.
But if you did like what you hear, please rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, and class dismissed.